Good morning, everybody. Good to see you this wonderful Saturday morning. I say that, but I have my blinds closed, so I have no idea actually if it's nice outside or not. My guess is it's probably not that nice outside because we are very quickly moving into the winter months. So I know it's been a little dreary. I did let the dogs out earlier, and so it was a little. It wasn't too cold, but it was definitely overcast and a little bit rainy. So we're going to try to brighten it up just a little bit, at least in here. That's what these lights are for. Try to make it a little bit brighter when it's not so bright outside. So hopefully you are doing well. It is morning my time. I know a lot of you are watching this from other parts of the world, or maybe you're just watching it later and it's a different time where you are and when you're watching this. So, whenever you're watching it, I hope you're having a good day, or hope you had a good day, or hope that you will have a good day. So it's the weekend. One of the things that we look forward to, obviously, in the working world is the weekend, weekends and holidays. Hopefully, you do enjoy your job as well, and more than likely, if you are looking to change jobs and get into the developer world, maybe you don't like your job that much, but hopefully, you'll be able to get into the development world and find that you don't like working as a developer either. I mean, that you enjoy the development world too. So, thank you for jumping on here. Looking forward to talking through a few things. If you are watching live, jump in the chat, say hello. It's funny, every time I type that out, I don't know why, probably just because I'm a terrible speller, but every time I write that in the chat, I always type HELLOW. I don't know why. In fact, I've told people for years the one of the reasons I became a web developer was that I'm a terrible speller, but I'm a consistently terrible speller. I spell things wrong the same way every time, and so if you see me type something incorrectly, just know it is not necessarily a mistake. It's probably just because I'm a terrible speller. So feel free to call me out if you ever see that when I'm doing any live coding or anything. So we're going to take a look at some things here this morning with the Deep Pockets project. If we have time, I do have some things I want to share as far as some of the decisions that you make when it comes to what you're choosing to do as a developer, to learn or even job changes, things like that. And then we'll open it up for some Q&A if you have questions about anything when it comes to the development world, when it comes to specifically growing from junior to mid to senior level developer. Whatever would help you on your journey, ask your questions in the chat. And when you do that, if you would just put at DevMentorDave, it makes it much easier for me to see it. If we have multiple people in the chat and they're kind of talking about multiple things or interacting with things that I've said, certainly if you feel free to do that as well. I love interacting with you guys on the chat. It's really one of the main reasons why I have a live stream. So please jump in there and say hello and and join me on this journey. So okay, let's see, what else do we need to do? Obviously, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. All that stuff. Everybody tells you what to do. You know what to do. Oh, hey Ming. Good to see you from Taekwondo. Oh, fun. I never got into, well, I was never really that interested in martial arts as a kid, and my parents, I was much more of a fine arts type of person. So we never jumped into that stuff. So, but I have friends who are very high in that process. So I just hope that they will protect me along the way if anything were to happen. Um, so welcome back, Ming. Good to see you. And yeah, I do apologize last week if anybody showed up last week and um, wondered what happened to the live stream. I actually went ahead and took it down too because it didn't make any sense to have I think it was like 5 minutes of a live stream up. My wife called me, had some things that I needed to take care of at the time, but nothing bad, just something that interfered with being able to stay live. So I went ahead and just canceled it last week and figured we'd jump back on here and take a look at these things this morning. So, excuse me. the first thing I want to do is get caught up on the Deep Pockets project. We'll take a look at some PRs, at some updated PRs, and then we'll move on to some Q&A or some interaction here. Some thoughts that I have. I am going to keep this one short today. I apologize for that. I have a lot of stuff going on today. I've got some things that I need to finish up for church, and then my son's birthday party is today as well. So it was a busy week, last busy couple of weeks, and I'm sure it's going to get even more busy as we get into the holiday season. I know there's going to be things that get in the way. Obviously, I'm going to be out of town at some point, so I probably will have a week or so where I won't have any live streams. Probably won't have any content either, just because I don't have a lot of time to make videos. So that's, the holidays are coming up. That's going to create some changes in schedules and things like that. I can tell you that right now I will not be on December 7th, which is several weeks away. We have something going on that day as well. But I will make sure we keep everybody updated as we move forward through the end of the year. It doesn't look like we're going to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. In some ways, I'm grateful, because that means I don't have to bake a cake live for Mel. And in some ways, it's a little discouraging. But there's certain things that I think you have to do consistently to really build up a channel quickly, and I just don't have the time for that. So it is what it is. I'm not too worried about it. Hey, O'Neill, good to see you. We're going to look at your PRs here in just a minute. So anyway, so the Deep Pockets project, we are going to look at a couple PRs here. We're going to discuss the future of that as we get towards the end of 2025 or 2024. I'm already moved on. As we get to the end of 2024 and then go into 2025, I'm going to be spending some more time, some more dedicated time with design. I'm going to try to get really far ahead on design and tickets so that we can start moving forward at a more rapid pace. I know we had a couple of people who asked to be added, and I just got busy and didn't add them till last night. So hopefully they'll be able to jump in here as well and start moving this project forward. And then, of course, we have the traders like Mel, who jumped ship. I'm just kidding. So obviously, the ebb and flow of people participating in this is going to change over time, and that's fine. And there is no specific timeline for this. The whole goal is to give you guys something to participate in, to interact in somewhat of a team environment, see how that works. If you don't have any experience in that. So that really is the goal of the Deep Pockets project. So I think, even though it's been slow going, A, getting here, and then B, actually in the participation aspect of it, I think it will serve what we want it to do, even going into 2025. So welcome, Mel. Good to see you. Welcome, Ali. Good to see you as well. We've got the crew. The gang is back on a Saturday morning or afternoon or evening, whatever it is for you. So it's good to see you guys. Again, if you miss it, I don't know when you guys jump in. I don't know if you jump in live or if you're jumping in at the beginning. So if you're jumping in live, just an FYI, we're probably only going to go about an hour or so today, just because I've got a lot of things going on today that I need to take care of. So we're going to keep this one a little bit short. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask questions. So feel free to ask your questions. I would rather deal with your guys' questions and interact with you guys than talk about any subjects that I specifically have. So feel free to ask away as we get through kind of the end of the Deep Pockets stuff here. So let's jump over to the Deep Pockets page. And where we left off last time was right here. So we've got this done. This is the main branch. So we've got a couple of PRs that we looked at last time, had some, yeah, exactly, Mel. Things get very busy around this time of year. I will keep everybody updated though. So we do have a couple of PRs that have some more items here, but we wanted to make sure and get those buttoned up well before we push them into the main repository. So this is where we're at. We're going to hopefully be pushing in a couple more things here this morning as we take a look at these PRs, and I think they are updated. So let's jump into that. So we've got 2 pull requests. 3 pull requests. O'Neill. You snuck one in this morning. Good job. All right. So we've got even more to look at. Yay. All right. So let's go back to this one. This one we had several comments on. Please update based on the comments. One thing that I will do, if you'll notice, this says outdated. I don't know if you can see it here. Let me try to make this bigger. Here we go. So if you'll notice on the comments, it says outdated. That lets me know that it's outdated. But if you wrote code or changed code and it doesn't, see, most of my experiences with Bitbucket, and usually Bitbucket will just automatically kind of shut this down, make it clear that it's been changed. But like, so let's like budget list search, JSX line 15. Let's just go to that here. Line 15. All right. So obviously something has been changed in this because it's not the same code, right? So what I would do is if you have actually updated the code and it doesn't do any sort of resolution here, just go ahead and pop in here and hit resolve conversation. If it will let you. It may not let you, but if it does let you, hit the resolve conversation, because that just lets me know at a glance. I don't have to look for these. I can just see that the comments are no longer there. Obviously, you can open them back up if you want, but it just makes it a little bit more clear for me when I'm looking at it if anything's been done, because I may not notice the outdated tag right away. So just a little helpful hint for me as the reviewer. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this one as resolved as well, because I can come up here to the commits and see that we made some changes here. So let's go and look at the files again. You know, I'm not that in the way. Okay, we're good. All right, so we've got a budget list search. This is the listing page, and here's the element that we've added in, the search area. And the main issue that we had when we looked at this before was wanting to use the select component. So we've got the select component here rather than the form. I think was it form text or form input? Yeah, text field. That's what it was. So I want to try to, as much as we can, use the right elements if we possibly can when we're developing. So typically this would be a select element. So we'll use the Material UI select element to do that. Sometimes there are cases where you need to do things differently, and it's a little bit annoying, but you know, it is what it is. So this was the main concern that I had on here. And then we had the console log update instead of the alert. Yeah. So very good. I am, even though we already tested this, I do, because we have a new element that is a substantial change, I do want to go ahead and pull this down and make sure that we are testing it locally too. So let's check that out. Update it. Oops. Update that. Make sure we've got the most recent stuff and take a look. Here we go. Attribute. Why does it say attribute? I did not notice that. Oops, files. That's what I want. So what we want is for this guy to be year, right? Because it's a year. I don't know if I missed that the last time or if that just got changed. Well, I can tell you if it got changed. This is, it looks like this is all new. Well, it's new because of the other thing. Let's see. Let's go to our commits and change drop down to select. We can see what was actually changed. There's a console log change. Label attribute. It was attribute before. What do you know? I just missed it. All right, so we'll want to make sure and change this to year. So because I'm right here in it, I'm just going to do it. Oh, I don't have my... Hang on one second. Let me get my... Visual Studio going. Yay. I don't know why I didn't have that up and running, but here we go. Okay. Let's see. You guys get to see how the sausage is made. Boom. Okay. Sorry, I got a fly flying around. It's driving me crazy. Okay, so let's take a look at this guy. We'll come in here, change this to year. And that should fix that. Boom, year. Excellent. All right. Search. Excellent. One thing here. See, this is what happens when you start digging into stuff further. You find more things that you want changed. So budget year, default value. I wouldn't use the default value. I would make this empty. So instead, this would be was it placeholder? Yeah. Oh, excuse me, guys. Sorry. Oh, I need a mute button. That doesn't usually happen to me. All right. Come back over here. All right. Now when I click on that, it says budget name, but it's not actually in there. I don't have to delete it. All right. So very good. Awesome. Okay. Oh, you probably did that to get the search up here in the top. That would be my guess. There is another way to do that. I forget off the top of my head how to do that. But I'm fine with it just being like this. Obviously this already has a selection. Maybe we come back here just to make it even. And let's see. No, I like having the current year. I like that, although it's incorrect. It's actually 2024. Why is date giving us 2025? I'm not too worried about it right now. Oh well. Okay. So that looks good to me. We're going to push this up. Get status, get add, get commit. Come on. See, typing live, it's never goes well. Just what did I do? Oh, fixing year label. And we'll push that up. Very good. Okay. So now we come back here and we should be able to see that update. Fixing your label. Okay. Now we're going to approve this. So I'm going to pull this back a little. It's a little bit big for me. Okay. Where's the approve button? I am not a fan of GitHub. Change requested. Oh, I need to approve this, don't I? Let's see. Where's the approval? Is that in here? Approve. Submit. There we go. Now we can merge it in. Ugh. So many steps. All right, so that's been merged. Let's come back over here. We're going to do a get checkout main, get pull. All right, and now we're on main. Everything should be the same. Very good. All right, let's come back over here to our pull requests. So good job, O'Neill. One little thing that I didn't catch last time, I should have, but we got it this time. And then this one, I think I just said I would approve it. Yeah, after number 2022 is complete. Let me just look at it again. I always want to look at it again just to make sure there wasn't any comments or anything. Again, I think that was fine, so we'll come back over here. I'm not going to retest this one since there was nothing mentioned, no comments and nothing mentioned from before. It was just waiting for kind of the parent PR to go through. So we'll go ahead and approve this. Oh, all right. It's amazing if you actually look at the way they design stuff. Okay. So this is just give me a moment for a tangent here. This is, in my opinion, this is not a good layout. I don't like the way that GitHub sets this up. And generally, when you build an application, you want to build something that makes sense to the user, not just to you. We have a tendency as developers to build things that make sense to us and the way that we think. That's why user testing is really important. That's why getting designs before you develop is really important if you can. And having those designs approved. If you can use some sort of workflow process that lets you kind of click through pages and processes and make sure that's the way they want it to work. Because you want your application to be intuitive. You don't want to be looking around finding the thing that you need to do. But if you have an application like that, learn your tools. All right, so this is a good example of me needing to learn my tools. All right, we're going to merge this in and come back over here. I should just be able to get it pulled because I'm on main. Get the most recent. What did that change up here? I think that had to do with this menu thing. So, okay. And we've got one more PR. Let's open this up. Create budget list component based on Figma design. All right. So we're looking at the budget listing component. So let's take a look at the files changed. So we've got, the budget list. So this is the actual, as you can see, all these table, cells, footer, elements. This is going to be the listing page for our budgets. So we're going to scroll down here. Pagination actions. Okay. Handle backup button. Next button, click. All right. So we've got some event handlers here, which is good. And we're returning. Here's our actual content for the actions. Oh, that's right. You do it that way. I forgot. It's just a little bit different from the way that I typically write mine. So I have to look at how you're actually setting this up. Okay. So we've got, okay, so that's our table actions. And then we have pagination actions. That all looks good at a glance. Create data. So, okay, nifty. So you've made a little method right here. So this is a good process, guys. When you're building something and you don't have the backend built out yet, so that you can actually work with real data or even data coming from the API, it's good to create some sort of data creation method. I prefer this over just a static data, right? So I would even set this up to try to do this even a little bit more automatic so that you're not giving it, but this is perfectly fine. So you want some way to return data. My only concern with this is this seems like it's a little bit too abstract. I would probably get rid of this and just build it out, because if you think about it, you're returning this, right? And it's basically everything you've got here. You could just remove the parentheses and put the curly braces around it. So I would just do this part rather than doing this part. This is clever. I'm not saying it's wrong, but for me, it's just kind of extra space. So again, it's not something that I would kick the PR back for, but just in my opinion, I think if you're going to have data, which you should, for testing, then I would just do it like this, because all this is doing is just taking the same thing and returning it in a different structure when you could have just written it in that structure originally. So that's my 2 cents. Again, is this wrong? No. Just my opinion of how I would do it. I'll get to that here in a minute, Ming. Let's see. So we've got the data, and then we have the actual element. Page, set page, yeah, see state, all that stuff, empty rows, okay. Handle page change, button press, console logs, excellent. Okay, then we got our table container. All this looks right. Year, month, budget, name, and actually, let's pull it up. Just make sure that we're looking at this correctly. So we've got year, month, budget, name, and then edit buttons over here. So let's take a look. Table body. Table row, cell. Something looks budget name. Oh, I see what you did. Okay. So here's what I would typically do. Instead of putting the button inside the table cell with the last item, I would, and this may be a problem with the design. So totally my my fault if that's the case. The goal here really, it should have had like action or something up here. So that's my fault. Typically you would want these in their own column. And you would either have a header or have no header above it. That's more the idea that I would be going for. So I will kick this back just because I want that structure. So this would be a situation where you didn't do anything wrong, but I want to make sure that we do it a certain way. And that would typically you would see that happen when you're dealing with like design standards, things like that, coding standards. You're going to see more of those types of responses where, hey, that's not the way that we want to do this. Not because what you did was wrong, but just because this is the way that we do it, right? So that is one thing I'm going to kick back just because I want to put that in a separate cell. So let's put this in its own cell. All right. And let's see something like that is this is why you actually look through the code, right? Because something like that is something that you might not catch just looking at it visually, right? So let's pull this down a little earlier than I would normally do it, but let's pull it down. Oh, go back. Wrong things. Okay. Here. Get checkout. All right, we'll take a look at it. See, when I look at this, there's nothing visually telling me that this is wrong because it looks, to O'Neill's credit, it looks like it should. It matches the design, right? So if I'm just pulling it down and looking at it, I'm not necessarily going to notice that this is not how we would typically do it. So you want to make sure when you're doing PR reviews that you actually look at the code. You actually read through the code. You try to understand what the code is doing, even if it's just HTML. And I'll be honest with you, there's many times where I've just glanced over HTML because I just assumed it was fine if it looks right visually. But in this case, I think I want to make sure that we use a table structure, a separate cell for each of the elements in that table. So we'll kick that back for that reason. Let's see. Empty rows, blah, blah, blah. Footer. We got our pagination stuff. That looks fine at a glance. Excellent. Okay. Then we have the budget list page where we are pulling in the budget lists. That's pretty much the main change here. Don't know. Oh, so again, what we want to do here is actually pull in main, right? So let's do get or merge in main. Get merge main. And there we go. We'll accept that merge comment. Get push. There we go. Okay, so now we should see some of this stuff change here. So we shouldn't see this when we refresh because that's part of something that was already merged into main. So we'll refresh here. Yep. So we see that that's, and we have one less file as well in here. So again, whenever, obviously when we're hitting these one at a time real quick in succession like this, you don't have time to do that. But especially if you've got like on a team where you have multiple people putting up PRs and people are checking things in at different times, as soon as you've got something checked in, if you have other pull requests, make sure you update those pull requests with the latest content, so that way it's fresh and it just helps the reviewer not have to review some extra things in the process. So, all right, but the rest of this looks good. So I'm just going to kick it back for that one thing. We were so close. So I'm going to just hit request changes, submit review. Just that one slight change, and knowing O'Neill, he'll probably have it done before we end here. But anyway, so I'm going to kick it back for that. We will probably look at that next week, unless if you get it done, I could probably just merge it in sometime this week so we can move on from that. Again, there are tickets in the ready section of the project. Once you have done something, please move it. If you don't have permission to move a ticket, please let me know. Because if you are in this project, you should have the ability to move tickets along the progress. So I want to make sure that we are moving those. So this actually, we're gonna, and if you take over something, go ahead and put yourself on it so that we know who's working on it. We probably just get Ming off. There we go. There we go. Sorry, Ming. All right, so that has been put in there. I'm going to put it in the rework column because we have one small thing to do. And then when you move it into, when you create a PR, put it in the review process, in the review column. I'm going to move these to done because they are done. And there you go. Okay. So that is the Deep Pockets project update. We are getting very, very close to the next page, which will be the budget details page. And you can find that here. Obviously, we will have more designs being added later on in the process. If you notice, when you look at these, I try to name the pages specifically, so I'll reference those names in the tickets. So if you look up above each of the pages, I'll try to make sure and have a name up there that matches the tickets. Also, if we have like different state changes and things like that, I will probably take these and copy them over to the left. I think I can do this, right? Nope, I can't do that. I always forget. I'm not in here enough to remember all the ins and outs of Figma like I should. So I'll probably do something like this and then add, what the difference is up here. So if it's the same page, it'll be broken out to the right. If there's multiple views of it, multiple things that we need to call out in the designs. So just so you're aware of how that's going to work. And part of that's because I'm using the free version of Figma, which means there's not a lot of functionality for extra pages. You only get like one page or something like that in your design that you build out. So, because I'm cheap. There you go. All right. Hopefully that was helpful in some way to you in the process there. And if you're able to jump into the Deep Pockets project, please feel free. If you need access to the repo or to the project board, let me know in the Discord server and I will make sure and get you access to that. All right. So let me transition back over here to just me. There we go. and see what's going on. I saw some chatting going on here while I was going through that stuff, but I wanted to get through the Deep Pockets project items before we jumped into this. So let's take a look here. Yeah, I think you can do that. There's also like a really simple way, like you hold one button and drag, and you can duplicate stuff, and I just don't remember what it is off the top of my head. So, oh well. Let's see. Let's see here. What's going on? Busy. Ming says, I have a question. They couldn't pass me to the next stage because I only worked freelance and was only an individual contributor. I also mentioned that I had worked on in teams before. Thoughts fair? In my opinion, that's not fair. So for me, what that tells me is they don't know necessarily how to evaluate individual talent. They only know how to find people that match what they're looking for. Like basically what they're looking for, somebody who on paper has the things that they're looking for, and what's probably going to happen is they're probably going to end up with somebody who doesn't work well. um, because rather than knowing how to evaluate an individual person and interact with an individual person and ask the right questions to find out how they would work with a team, um, you know, it's just they're looking for a proven commodity is what it is. At the end of the day, they're looking for a proven commodity and all the things that are important to them. And I think while I would agree that it's not fair, it is unfortunately often reality. Um, we do the same thing to some degree. I mean, our the company I work for, we don't hire junior developers, so that's not as big of a deal. But I mean, we want, as an employer, we want as much as we can get from somebody. We want to have as much experience and knowledge as we can get, and we want to ask questions around, how do you work within a team. um, Typically, if I'm working with somebody that, if I'm interviewing somebody that doesn't have necessarily the same type of experience as I do, or that I'm looking for, which I have. I've interviewed people who have worked for companies, not freelance, but actually worked for companies, and they were the only developer. So they didn't really work on a team of developers, but they still worked with other people. And I think a good interviewer can go through and ask questions around how they worked as a team, as part of a larger team outside of the development world, outside of the development department. And so I think it's important from an employer standpoint, from an interviewer standpoint, to be able to have that flexibility and to be able to ask questions that will help you understand how this person interacts, or what struggles they might have with team interactions. Because you can ask questions about their relationship with other people in the company that they had to work with on a regular basis. That's their team, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that they were developers that they were working with, but they still worked with people. They still had some sort of manager. Even freelance, you're still going to have questions around, like, how did you interact with the customer? A lot of the same questions you would have around team members, you can have around customers, because customers are in many ways kind of the hardest team members to work with because they're like a boss in that they're paying the bills, but they're also the client in the fact that they have very set expectations and they often don't understand what you're doing. And so you have to be able to interact with them many times even more carefully than you do inside of a development team where everybody pretty much knows the same stuff. And they're all very similar kind of in their attitude and mentality. So in some ways, I think the ability to work with a client gives you an even stronger case in your ability to work with a team. So that's why for me, freelance experience is good experience. It's something that as employers, as interviewers, we should be able to ask questions around, because I think it's actually going to show somebody who's even more well-rounded than perhaps somebody who's only ever worked on a dev team in large companies. Um, there are developers that I've worked with before on large development teams who you would never want to put in front of a client. You would never want them interacting with a client, not because they're bad people, but because they just don't have the soft skills to do that. And if you have the soft skills to interact with clients as a freelancer, you have plenty of soft skills to interact with um, a development team. It's almost like a lower level of communication, if that makes sense. You have your immediate team, and then you have your broader development team, and then you've got your management structure, and then you've got your clients, right? So if you, in my opinion, if you can interact well with clients, then that tells me you most likely can interact well with people on those kind of lower tiers of communication, soft skill requirements, right? So that's, in my opinion, that's unfortunate. It shows a lack of flexibility. It shows a lack of understanding when it comes to teamwork and communication. And it looks more like they're, these are the types of things that to me sound like excuses more than they sound like valid reasons, right? Because you have to give a reason. I mean, you don't have to actually, depending on where you are. But if you're being at least nice, you're going to give some reason why they're not moving forward with you. And again, they don't have to do that, but if they do, a lot of times these types of answers, either they're just something that they use, or they just it could be a hiring thing. So some companies do just make it their policy that they're not going to hire somebody that doesn't have experience in X thing, right? And that's their prerogative to do that. I think it limits them on who they can hire, and limits their ability to, it limits the ability for the interviewer to have an opinion. And I think in some ways, companies want to get away from interviewers having opinions, because it's much easier to just have some set checklist where you can, if you've got somebody that meets all these check marks, then they're a good candidate. It makes it easier, it makes it faster to do that. But if you have a process where you have real developers interviewing potential developers, they can ask questions that maybe are not going to be on that list, and they can get feedback visually. They can discuss things in more detail than a non-developer interviewer can do. And they're going to have a better instinct, a better idea, a better feeling about whether this person is going to be a good fit or not. And sometimes that feeling is going to conflict with a checklist, because the checklist is looking for specific things, but that feeling tells you, based on the way that I've interacted with this person, that person has something. I can tell that they have something that's going to drive them, that's going to push them forward, that's going to make them a better asset than somebody who just makes checks all the boxes. So hopefully, you can find something else there, Ming. I know it's frustrating right now in this market, and I do agree with you. I think it's not fair. Is it wrong? I wouldn't say so much that it's wrong, just because it could be policies that they have in place and they're just following their policies. So yeah. See what else you said here. So then they said they found some other candidates whose skill set matched. It's nice to know more about devs and infrastructure. How can I demonstrate that when I don't have experience in it? You can't really, without lying, and I would never suggest that, obviously. I think the thing that you can do is just get more experience. That seems unfair, but it's just the reality. And again, it goes back to, companies are looking for the person who has the most to give for the least amount of money. It's just good business. It's not because they're evil people. That's just the reality. So the more you know, the more you can do, the more you've experienced, the more you're going to fit for a company like that. The other thing that I would say outside of just learning more stuff is being able to communicate deeper or more fully on the things that you do know. Being able to communicate how you go about learning new things, maybe how quickly you can pick things up. That's something that I've done in the past, especially when they ask about things that I don't really know. I'll give an example of something else that I've had to pick up. For example, Vue. When I first learned Vue, I was working for a company that was doing as a freelancer, and they were kind of a marketing company, big marketing company here in Kansas City. And I signed on really because I wanted to learn the front end JavaScript frameworks. And the first one that I learned was Angular. And I learned Angular with them, probably took me about a month or so to learn Angular and really to get up to speed and use it consistently. And then after about 6 months, no, about 8 months, they moved me to a different project, and that project was using Vue. It was Vue 2 at the time. And I had not used Vue. I had barely had some ideas of Angular before I started. So I had to learn Angular in a month. And Vue I picked up in about a week. Partially because I knew Angular, there was some crossover there. And then just I needed to do it. I had to, in order to get it up and running, I had to learn Vue very quickly. So within a week, I was able to get up and running and be beneficial, be useful to the company on Vue. And so I would use something like that in my history to show them both my dedication and show them my ability to learn something new and be productive in a very short period of time. Because that's something, especially when you're looking with junior developers, companies are always concerned about how long is it going to take to get someone up to speed. Honestly, that's the same with senior developers too. We're very concerned with how long is this person going to take to jump into a project that we have, because we're billing clients for the time spent on these projects, and we need to be productive as quickly as we can. So when somebody can communicate something like that to me, hopefully truthfully, then that tells me this person is dedicated. They know how to learn, and they can jump into stuff quickly and be productive and be proactive in that process. And so I think even in areas where you don't know something, being able to demonstrate a process and an experience in learning things quickly and being productive quickly can really help you. Again, if the interviewer doesn't have just a checklist, it can really help you help them see that you are a candidate, see that you are somebody who's not just going to be a drain on the team as a junior developer, but somebody's going to be able to be productive right out of the gate. Let's see. If I say I'm willing to learn the parts I don't know, would that not give off an impression that I'm really a junior and need some time to learn? No. That example that I just gave you was in my second job after freelancing. So I had already worked for 3 years for a company. I had experience after my freelance period, and I still use that because it shows that I'm not just a one-trick pony, right? You can have somebody, and I've mentioned this before, but you can have a developer who does the same thing for 5 years and never really learns anything new. And if they have to go to a new job, getting them spun up on something new may take weeks to do that because they haven't been in a place or in the process that has required them to learn new things very quickly over and over and over again. I was in a position, my first job, where I was in some ways stuck early on in the WordPress world, and that's all I did. But then the last half, I was in a position where I was constantly learning new things and being forced to learn new things in order to get the things done that we needed to for the clients. So, so even as a senior level or mid-level to senior level developer, I still, even to this day, I would use that example as something that shows my ability to to be productive and proactive. I think that's important. If they turn that around and think that, well, this person's just a junior dev, then they don't understand what you're saying. And honestly, if they have that type of judgment, then they're probably never going to really see you as who you are. And so that's something that, again, every rejection is not necessarily your fault. Um, it could be keeping you from a bad situation, right? Or at least a less enjoyable, less fruitful situation. So it's still hard. It's hard to not be accepted. It's hard to be told that you don't meet a certain standard. But on the bright side, realize that some of those standards are not great standards, or they're there for reasons that we just don't understand. Maybe they've had certain experiences. There's things that for a long time at our company we didn't do from a code standpoint, that were kind of industry standard things, because we've had some issues uh, with doing things that way with some of the projects that we were working on. Now, that doesn't mean things don't change over time and get better, and now that's a great thing to use, or great package to use, or whatever. Um, but it just means that that was a part of the policy. We don't use that package, or we don't use that style of coding, or whatever it is, because of issues in the past. So you never know why those limits are in place. You just have to accept that that wasn't the place for you, and realize that you might have dodged a bullet. And that's how I typically think about it. There have been companies that I wanted to work for, after interviewing, and I didn't get the job. And I just had to think, well, there might be something there that could have really ruined my career or made it much more difficult. So I just have to assume that it wasn't the best thing for me, and move on and continue to find something else. So um, I would not prohibit yourself from using that. I would just work on framing it correctly. So work on framing it in such a way that it shows your ability to learn something new, and not just learn something new, but then use it in the real world. Use it in a real project. Show how you were able to get up and running. Use real time frames like I did, like 1 month, 1 week. Show that it's not just this, well, I learned things quickly. Give examples that help you show, I learned this really big concept, Angular, React. I learned React in a week, because it's, once you've learned the other two, the third one kind of falls into place. So just showing that you can build on that. I definitely would not stop adding that to what you're saying, because when you get in front of a real developer, a real development interviewer, they're going to recognize the value of that statement, of that position on yourself. So they're gonna recognize that better than just some HR person who's filling out a checklist. Um, Unfortunately, it may be that that's a gatekeeping thing. Again, in my opinion, if you're dealing with a company that has that many layers of gatekeeping, like that sounds like a company I personally wouldn't want to work for. Um, that may be the norm where you are, though. So I don't know. Trying to find a way to work around that. Maybe, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a good suggestion Mel has, asking somebody to work on a freelance project with you, so you can give some examples of teamwork. That's a good call. Or working on someone else's project, absolutely. Um, yeah, no worries, Ming. We'll move your ticket on. I know, especially when you're, again, the Deep Pockets project is not something that's there to be enforced on anybody. It's there as an opportunity for anybody that has time and wants to jump in and work in these situations and get some experience that way. So definitely don't feel bad. Let's see. Bing says, I interacted with the client, so what was their issue with me not working with teams? Yeah, communication as a team, client and I. Exactly. Like, and again, I think that goes back to their process, right? If their process is more around filling out a checklist, you're going to end up with more rejections in that scenario. We have so our process currently at the job that I work for is one of us directors typically will call you the first time, and we will just kind of ask about your general work experience. It's a pretty short call, maybe 10 minutes, just to get an idea of your work experience, what you're looking for, what you're hoping to do, kind of where you're at as far as current job, if you're employed, unemployed, time, how soon you could start, things like that. And then we would call back and we would do more of the technical conversation. Um, and again, we're dealing with mostly senior developers, so we don't go into as much of a like coding challenge type stuff or anything like that, because a senior developer should be able to discuss the things that they've done um, verbally rather than have to answer a bunch of questions. But we have two steps, and after that kind of more intense 30 to 45 minute, maybe even an hour long depending on how the interview is going, conversation, we'll have a really good idea if you're a good fit based on the way that you communicate with us. I mean, we're pretty normal in our communication. We're not real formal and have a bunch of things that we go through. We want it to be as natural as possible. And we've, for the most part, done a good job of hiring over the years that I've been here. Obviously, people leave for many different reasons. So, I mean, you're going to have attrition no matter where you go. But we've been really happy with a high percentage of the developers that we've had work here. And I think part of that goes back to the way that we interview. We're not looking for a checklist. We're not looking for specific requirements necessarily. What we're looking for is somebody who is the type of developer that we want, as other developers, as directors, as people who are going to be managing this developer, whether they're coming in as a developer or coming in as a lead. We know generally what good developers talk about, how they talk, experiences that they've had. And I can't necessarily just give you a checklist of what those are. It's all in the communication. It's again, it goes back to that feeling versus checklist, right? As a developer and as a lead and as a director, I have experiences that I'm able to see nuance in what people are saying. I'm able to tell when somebody's maybe, skirting an issue or something like that. And I'm able to tell if somebody's being sincere most of the time too. And I think that's really important in this process. And I think a lot of companies don't have the time or aren't willing to take the time to do that type of an interview. And so they get stuck with these check boxes. And when you don't match the check boxes, unfortunately, you're just not qualified in their eyes, even though you probably would be a great dev for them and be very helpful to them. They can't see that because their process doesn't help them do that. So, but yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, you've interacted with a client, then you've worked on a team, and you have soft skills that are necessary for team interaction that a lot of other devs who do work on teams don't have very much of. So, yeah. This role was a new startup, so I can understand they want somebody to be in charge of everything for a low salary. The salary should be much higher considering the responsibilities. Yeah. Based on a job description, right? So yeah, that is one thing. Startups are a mixed bag. Generally, in a startup, you want to hire senior level developers because you need to move quickly. The problem is, depending on the startup, you may not have the funds to hire senior level developers. So it's kind of a catch-22. Unless they have good funding, startups are kind of difficult for junior developers to jump into, and last for a while. I'll put it that way. They often get into them, but because of their low cost, but they don't often last very long, and that really is the struggle with startups. So yeah, I don't know me. I think I would try to find maybe a mid-sized company or even a small company that's not a startup, and and try to find somebody like that where they're not dependent on you being more than what you are, and they also have the ability to give you some mentoring and some leadership along the way to help you grow, and they're interested in helping you grow. Those are hard things to find, and at some point you do have to just kind of take what you can take. I know, I get that, but I would probably look for something maybe a little bit bigger than a startup. Although that is interesting. You said they have a runway of 2 years. Um, yeah, it just depends on their development philosophy. It depends on um, how heavy they are from the top down. You know, a lot of times startups, when they get funding, that's kind of like an opportunity for the original owner to get paid to some degree. So some of that money doesn't make it down as far as it could, because you've got an owner who's now drawing a salary. A lot of times they don't. So that's not doesn't happen with everybody, but I've seen that happen where owners of startups get funded and now they're drawing a salary where they weren't drawing a salary before, and so that does take away from some of the funds available for that runway. Also, a 2 year runway is that's tight depending on what they're trying to build. If you're trying to build anything significant and you're trying to do it well, 2 years is that's a pretty minimum, I think, amount of time for you to not only develop the project but get it to market, get it in front of end users, get feedback, and start iterating on that project, to make it better for the end users. 2 years is pretty quick, and it sounds like a long time, but unless you're going to start with like a massive team and you've already got everything in place from day one, 2 years is it's going to be a challenge for them to do that. So they're relying on sales. Had a 10% profit. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens to them. The reality is that most small businesses go out of business. I think it's in like the first couple of years, maybe 5 years, something like that. Maybe even first year. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, most small businesses don't last, and I can attest to that. Having worked for multiple small businesses, half of them that I've worked for were are still going. One of them, I'm amazed they're still going, but one of them is not. And so I think I'm trying to remember if there's another one. Okay, so 33% or of the small businesses I've worked for. Um, I guess my current one is a small business, but I'm still working there. By the time I was let go, they were two of them were still working and still are working, and one of them was not. So that's just the harsh reality of small businesses. LinkedIn, yeah. I'll be honest with you, I have never gotten a job through LinkedIn or Monster or Career Builder or anything like that. I've only ever gotten a job through recruiters. Um, so I'm sure you're probably using that angle as well, but that's maybe hard. I don't know how the recruiting world is working right now, so um, may not be working as well, especially for junior devs at the moment. But anyway, I do apologize again, guys. We're gonna cut it short today. I've got some things that I need to get done, and later on, uh, we have a birthday party for my son who turned 18 on Thursday. So yeah, there's that. That'll make you feel old, won't it? So to answer your question, Mel, I typically have been contacted via LinkedIn for most of the recruiters that I've worked with. I have a list of people that I've interacted with that I will contact if I lose a job. They're the first people that I'll contact. Unfortunately, sometimes they're no longer in recruiting, But if they are, then I'll still contact them, or I'll, I still get contacted by people on LinkedIn from recruiters who are um, looking for developers. Not as much anymore, just because my title has changed since I'm no longer an active developer, even though I do still develop at the job. I'm more of a leadership position. I've noticed I haven't gotten as many people interacting with me looking for developers. Um, so that'll be interesting if I ever have to jump back into that world again. But that most of the recruiters I've interacted with have been on LinkedIn. Um, and obviously if they're local, I've met them for coffee and things like that before too. But yeah, I would highly recommend connecting with people on LinkedIn just because that's where they all are, quite frankly. So I would definitely find them there. Yeah, sometimes you do have to follow up with them. Again, you have to remember that recruiters are not really working for you, they're working for themselves. I used to say they're working for the company, but especially if they're third party recruiters, they're not really working for the company. They are, but they're working for themselves. They're trying to make money for themselves, which there's nothing wrong with that. But they're working on behalf of the company, not on your behalf. They're just trying to find the right match based on what the company has told them. So they're not really in it to help you. If they can help you and build that relationship, great. Again, I'm not saying that recruiters are bad or awful or mean, but sometimes you do have to follow up with them because you're not the main focus of their job search. It's the company that's their main focus because the company is the one that's paying their bills. So that's just something you have to keep in mind. But you'd have to do that. You should do that with any other job that you're applying to too. You should be the one interacting with them. They're probably not going to interact with you unless they just have a specific formal process to do so. So, uh, yeah, I do think it's good. One of the things that I always do when I'm doing job search, I will have multiple recruiters that I'm interacting with, and I will update them anytime there's a change. So anytime I have an update to my calendar, so I have a new meeting, I will update all the recruiters. Hey, just FYI, I have a interview on this date. Uh, if you're looking for times for me to talk to somebody else, this time is closed. It just tells them, it just lets them know that you are being seen too. So I do probably over communicate to recruiters, but I've had multiple recruiters actually tell me that they appreciated those emails when I would send them. So some of them probably don't, but some of them have actually communicated that they do. So I would definitely recommend that you at least keep them up to date. Less from a bugging standpoint, hey, do you have what I'm looking for, and more from a hey, this is where I'm at in my journey. That makes it feel um, less like you're bugging them and more like you're just informing them that you're still there and that you are active and that other people are interested. So that can be motivating sometimes. I've actually had a recruiter in the past um, work a little bit faster, we'll put it that way, in trying to get me an interview with their company after I told them some of the changes that had happened in interview processes that I've been in. So again, because we all get busy, they're trying to fill multiple roles. They're working with lots of different people, so they're going to forget things. They're going to forget you. They're going to forget um, how good of a candidate they thought you were because squirrel brain. They've moved on to something else short term. So having some sort of reminder that doesn't belittle them, doesn't sound angry or frustrated, but is just kind of an update on your journey. I think that can be really helpful to even motivate them to give you another look, to put you in front of another client that they might not have thought of originally. All those things. I definitely recommend that you keep them updated. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it is persistence. That's what does it, Ming. So there you go. Again, sorry, I'm gonna jump off. It's gone a little bit later than I was planning on. So, thank you everybody for jumping on and for your interaction. We'll jump into a topic next week um, that I want to discuss, but maybe we'll have some more content on it because of that. So we'll see how that works. next week, and hopefully we'll have some more stuff. Feel free to grab a ticket on the Deep Pockets Project and contribute if you would like to there. And if not, don't. And we'll just keep moving. So thanks everybody for jumping on here. Good to see you all. Thanks for the conversation. I will check in with you next Saturday for this live stream. Don't forget, we still have the Tuesday and Thursday LinkedIn Lunch live stream at 1 p.m. Central United States time. So if you're free, feel free to jump on that. We're just looking at different things on LinkedIn and giving opinions and sharing agreement, disagreement, and also answering your questions along the way as well. And getting your opinions as well with that. So have a great weekend. Almost spilled my coffee. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all on Tuesday or Thursday or Saturday.